Hello and welcome back to Mr. Mandypants.
It's just me and my silly life. It's Mr. Mandypants.
Now this is the first episode in a new series all based around fitness and well-being. I am currently in the midst of a weight loss journey. Please forgive the cliche phrase. I forget about that blooming alarm every time I do this. Now, I have tried a variety of different diets and lifestyle changes to varied success in the grand scale of things. And more recently, in the large scale of things, I've started taking Mounjaro. So this video series is to kind of just hold me accountable a little bit. I'm now at a point in this journey where I'm starting to see actual results from the choices I've made. And I think this would be a really good time to start this new series with you, because as someone who has always been bigger, at least for the last 15 to 20 years, being plus size makes losing weight really intimidating. So I thought I'd make this video to kind of give other people access to something that was quite scary. So I thought I would share my experience in the journey so far and bring you along for the ride, plus it can help hold me accountable. So, the question is, why am I making this history of me? A year ago, I looked like this. Sorry. I do want this to be a serious conversation and an honest depiction of my journey, present, future, successes and fails. But it's still me, so there's still going to be quirk at times. But in all seriousness, this is what I looked like a year ago. Now, for this series to work honestly, it's important that we jump back a few years and get an idea of who I am and how we got to this point. It's important to know that I have always had a passionate relationship with food of all types and varieties. Now, luckily, I don't really have much of a sweet tooth, so it's mainly the savoury foods and fizzy drinks that have been my kryptonite. And when I say fizzy drinks, I mean 20 plus cans a day. Now, health-wise, in 2019, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Because of this, I made the decision to cut out sugar. Now, this wasn't a decision I came to on my own. It was the only positive takeaway from my very brief stint with Slimming World. Now, I'm not aiming for this video to be a hate video about Slimming World. I'm sure it works for some people. I've seen proof that it does. But for me, I just didn't gel with the groups. I found them a little bit patronising. How one week Sandra's lost £1. She's done really well. But the next week Sandra's gained £5, but we're still going to clap Sandra despite the fact she failed. I know that's a cynical view of it, but I just didn't gel with the groups. But I know some people have. But the fact is, my time with Slimming World gave me that push to cut out sugar in my drinks. Because of how much I was drinking the sugar was just not good. So I switched to the Maxes, the Zeros, and just generally those versions of drinks. Now, as a working chef who has spent the last 10 plus years working with food, I have always had a very positive interaction with food, as you can tell by my previous physiques. Now, it's important to know that before I started weight loss management drugs, I did try a number of different diets, fad food crazes, and various things. In 2017, I started my first attempt at keto. Now, if you're not familiar with keto, it is a low-carb diet where you basically take your breads, your pastas, and your carbohydrates, you remove them fully from your diet, and you instead replace them with a high-fat alternative. This kind of reprograms your body to burn those things before it burns the other stuff. Now, I did manage to stick to keto for a good few months, and I quite enjoyed my time on it. But much like most of these fad diets and lifestyle changes, I just fell off of it one day. Until 2020, when we were all locked in our houses because there was a worldwide pandemic. That was the time that I decided, this is going to be a great time to cut out all carbohydrates again. I can't go out for food, I can't socialise, so there's no temptation. So I tried my second stint at keto. This time I managed to stick with keto for about 18 months. Is that really right? Is that true? That's inaccurate. Sorry, I've got a script and everything. I'm just making sure I get the right bits. This time I stuck with keto for well over a year, and I managed to lose 2.5 stone, bringing me down to around 18 and a half stone, which was really good. And I actually really enjoyed my time on keto. I was eating lettuce wraps instead of bread wraps. I was experimenting, making my own keto bread. The problem is I don't really like coconut flour or almond flour, so those alternatives weren't great for me. But I was doing really well. I lost a good amount of weight. And then the universe stepped in as if to say, no. Slow down, Sonny Jim. In March 2021, I suffered from a minor heart attack. Now, this was brought on by a SCAD, S-C-A-D, spontaneous coronary artery dissection. Basically, a small slice in one of the main arteries that delivers blood to your heart had developed. This caused an issue with the blood and triggered a small heart attack. Now, much to the surprise of my doctors and myself, it was not caused by my weight in any way. And considering that I was still about 18 plus stone, this was such a surprise. But a SCAD is a completely randomly occurring event. It's not preventable, it's not predictable, and it affects 1 in 2,000 people, more women than men. Now, for anyone who's not had a heart attack or any major medical issues, something happens when you have one of these events. You kind of get put into this scared category where you're afraid to do anything. So I had my heart attack in March 2021. They put me on a load of medication, which I'm going to be on for the rest of my life. I'm still on now. And I put the majority of my weight back on, and I went right back up to 19.5 to 20 stone and just kind of jumped up and down into that category. It affected my mental well-being and my physical well-being. The thing is, when you've had a heart attack, for me at least, I was scared to do anything for a good few months. I cancelled any gym memberships. I avoided any real physical exertion because I had this fear in my own head that I would trigger another heart attack, despite the fact the first one was caused by something completely random. It's just a state you put yourself in. Because of this, I basically wrapped myself in bubble wrap and I put all the weight back on. I started eating normally again. I was doing less physical activity. So, of course, I was going to bloom back up to the weight I started at, probably slightly higher. Now we're going to jump ahead a little bit to 2023. I'm now single, living alone, and I've relocated for work. My mental well-being is at an all-time dangerous low, which shouldn't be a surprise. I was the heaviest I'd been for a long time, and I had a lot of time with just my own thoughts, somewhere that no one wants to be. So I decided to try my hand at being vegan. I had heard mixed opinions about being vegan. Now, I did this for 2 reasons. 1, I'd heard that it could have a really positive effect on your health and well-being. And 2, I was kind of seeing a girl who was a vegan, and I'm sure that had very little to do with the whole decision-making. But it definitely influenced it. I stuck with being a vegan for about 3 and a bit months, and to be honest, I really enjoyed my time as a vegan. Even to this day, I will opt for meat-free options sometimes, because sometimes I just think they're good things to have. I don't like it when they try and make things look like meat, like vegan bacon is not bacon, it's something else. Some of it's nice, but it's not bacon. You can put a carrot in a bun, it's not a hot dog. To quote my own TikTok, carrot ground, hot dog pig. They don't cross, they're not the same thing. But I enjoyed my time as a vegan. The problem is, I didn't really see a noticeable change in my health or my weight. I was probably feeling slightly better in myself because I wasn't eating as much heavy cheese, milk and like meat, but in reality, nothing had really changed. Now we're going to jump forward to 2025, when I made the decision to try Mounjaro. Now, if you don't know, Mounjaro is a weight loss drug. So basically you inject yourself once a week and it helps you lose weight. Now, another thing that a lot of people don't realise is Mounjaro is primarily used to help treat type 2 diabetes, which I have. So, I made an appointment with my diabetic nurse to discuss Mounjaro. She was perfectly friendly, but she basically said, no. There are so many other things we're going to do first before we could even consider Mounjaro. We're going to up your metformin by almost 4 times a day, which was a lot. The tablets are like this big now. And if they don't work, there's several other medications we can try you on before we even consider the weight loss drugs. With this in mind, I made the costly decision to privately source Mounjaro. Now, this is a perfectly legal thing to do. You just have to pay for it yourself and you have to go through an online provider. Now, I knew a few people who had been on Mounjaro. One of them is my housemate, Lizzie, who had given me their opinions and how it had affected them. So I had a lot of people's experiences, which helped me choose an online provider. I got my first dose of Mounjaro from an online company called MedExpress. Now, the process wasn't that complicated. You had to fill out a load of questionnaires about your lifestyle, your career, and your history, just to give them an idea of who you were. As well as this very long questionnaire, you also had to send them in some photos of yourself. Now, these photos aren't something I like looking at, but you had to take a front-on, rear view, and left and right side profile photo of yourself in tight-fitting clothes. So I opted for shorts and a tight shirt. Now, I'm going to show you the pictures. I don't like them, but for the honesty of this video, it's important that you see where I started at. I was at 19 stone and 13 pounds, so just under 20 stone. And this is what I look like. Enjoy. Ugh. Now, once the online providers have these photos, they then contact your doctors to make sure that it's safe for you personally to be on Mounjaro. And this was the bit I was actually really worried about, because yes, I was a type 2 diabetic, but I'd also had multiple heart problems and a kidney issue. So I was worried these would get in the way, but they didn't. I was allowed Mounjaro. And so on the 16th of September 2025, the day after my 36th birthday, I took my first dose of Mounjaro. The first dose is 2.5 milligrams. This is the starting dose, you can't get any lower. Now, the cost of this minimum dose was £199 full price. Now, I did manage to get my first pen for about £140, £150 because I had reference codes from friends. There was online discount codes because I was a new customer, which really helped with the startup cost, but it's still a lot of money. So I took that first dose on the 16th of September 2025, and I was expecting instant results, which looking back was ridiculous. It's a chemical at the end of the day. It has to get into your body and work its way through. 2 days after my first jab, I didn't feel like it was working. I was worried I had almost wasted £150. It's important for you to understand that when it came to eating food, my portion sizes were big. I could eat more than I think the general person can. And 2 days after my first injection, me and my two housemates, Lizzie and Adam, we went to a food truck for lunch. There's one in a nearby town that does really nice breakfast baguettes. So I ordered a breakfast baguette, the kind of thing I would normally order. Now, to give you an idea of size, because I don't have any pictures of that baguette, this was a full French stick, packed with bacon, eggs, hash browns, a couple of burgers, mushrooms, there was a fried egg. I think there might have even been beans in it. Oh, and black pudding. A full French stick, cut in half and wrapped in tinfoil. Massive, but the kind of thing I would normally eat with no problem at all. Except this time, I got 2/3 of the way through the first half, and the idea of finishing it physically made me feel sick. Mounjaro was finally working, and maybe I'd found something that might actually help me lose some weight for the long run. Now, I stayed on the starter 2.5 dose for 1 month. This isn't just a choice I made, this was how much you got in one of the pens. You get 4 injections worth per pen, so you can do it on week 1, 2, 3 and 4. And a week before my final dose, I started looking around to order the next dose, 5 milligrams. Now, it was when I was looking around this time that I managed to find an online company called The Simple Online Pharmacy. Now, this is a company that I have been using since then to this very day. Now, on my 5th week of taking Mounjaro, I weighed myself in with the start of a routine that I was going to stick to, where I would take the 4 weeks of dose A, and then just before I took my first dose of the next dose up, so dose B, I would weigh myself. That way I would get an accurate depiction of a month of weight loss, but without obsessively weighing myself every week or every day, because I didn't think that'd be healthy. So, on week 5, before taking dose B, I weighed myself. I had started at 19 stone 13 pounds. I was now at 19 stone 2 pounds, which, if my maths is right, which is not always right, I had lost 11 pounds in 4 weeks. My takeaway from the first month was that Mounjaro was managing to do what I had never been able to do. It was blocking out the food noise. I no longer had any urge to snack, and I was only eating when I was hungry, something that was getting further and further apart. Over the next couple of months, I kept this routine of stab, lose weight, weigh myself in, click and repeat. I'm sorry if you can hear these seagulls. They are very loud, and I've asked them to be quiet, and they just won't. 3 months in, I was down to 18 stone and 5 pounds. I had done 2.5, 5 milligrams and 7.5 milligrams, and we found ourselves at the beginning of December 2025. We'd lost a good amount in those first few months. I was really happy with what was happening, and the progress was good. Now, if you've done any research into Mounjaro and you're considering starting, you will have come across what I came across when I researched it. The horror stories. Honestly, there are a lot of horror stories about the various side effects and things that can happen when you start taking Mounjaro. There is stomach cramps, your bowels just deciding, nope, now you're going to poop. And honestly, some of these horror stories were terrifying, but I hadn't had any of them. I was just getting the good things. I was no longer snacking. I wasn't feeling overly hungry. The food noise was gone. No horror stories present. And then 10 milligrams walked into my life and decided it was going to ruin Christmas like the Grinch. But with more poop. Sorry. I took the first 10 milligram dose at the beginning of December 2025. And within a day or two, I was finding myself with crippling stomach cramps that were keeping me awake. And I just couldn't get them to go away. I was taking like Rene's, Pepto-Bismol, but nothing was shifting these stomach cramps. They were honestly terrible. Bearing in mind that I was already suffering, I made the worst decision that I have made to this very date. On Christmas Eve, me and my friend Tobias decided we were going to have a curry, a decision that, quite frankly, could not have backfired on me more if it tried. That evening I got home from the curry house, Christmas Eve went, Christmas arrived, and I did not sleep. I spent that entire night on my mother's toilet, which I am so sorry, Mum, because I visited that toilet so many times, and you know what? Christmas Day was no better. I must have visited my mother's toilet and done unspeakable things in there 20 to 30 times Christmas Day, barely managing to hold it together for Christmas dinner. It was literally shit. Merry Christmas. Come my January weigh-in, unsurprisingly, I'd lost weight. Quite a lot of weight. 1 stone and 1 pound. I'd managed to lose over a whole stone in 1 month because I had been so very ill. 10 milligrams had taken me by the throat and thrown me at a moving car. Then I moved up to the 12.5 milligram dose, and the dreaded side effects just faded away. The stomach cramps disappeared, and any of the other stuff I was experiencing just went. This was incredible. I was getting all of the positives again without the negatives. No longer did I have food noise, and I just wasn't hungry any of the time. I was actively having to remind myself to eat properly because I had no urge to. There was one slight side effect, which for most people might not be that bad, but for me, it was catastrophic. I found that I could no longer process caffeine properly. I drank a lot of Coke and a lot of tea, and I very quickly found that my stomach sensitivity had shifted into caffeine sensitivity, which is not a side effect I had read anything about anywhere. But after doing some more research, it was something that a few people were experiencing. I could no longer drink caffeine, and I had to switch to caffeine-free tea bags and Coke Zero and Pepsi Max caffeine-free. Then the February weigh-in came around, and I was down to 12... No, I wasn't. And I was down to 16 stone, 12 pounds. The weight loss had been significantly less than the previous month, but after Currygate, I couldn't really expect much more because I only lost that much in December. because of how ill I was on 10 milligrams. In March 2026, I jumped back onto Simple Online Pharmacy to order my next dose up, but I was met with a problem that I hadn't expected. They wanted to do a review, because of course they did. I'd been taking Mounjaro for several months now, and they wanted to know how it was going. So I had to refill out the questionnaire, and I had to send them some updated photos. So I fished out the same shorts and same shirt I wore originally, and I did a very depressing photo shoot. I had the photos from September 2025 and March 2026, and this astounded me, because for the first time, I could see the results. Sure, people had told me they could see the change in my face. My jawline was starting to become more prominent. My stomach had shrunk. But that's easy enough to hear it from people, but it's easier to ignore that and not really think it's true. Before me right now were the results. I could see a significant change in my physical being. I would be lying if I said that seeing this dramatic change didn't break me emotionally a little bit. It did. I had a little bit of a cry, because the thing I've been trying to do for so long was lose weight. And now I was. As I film this video, it is June 2026. We're about 2/3 of the way through June. We've got about a week and a bit left. And I've been on 15 milligrams provided by Simple Online Pharmacy since March. And it's safe to say it's working. As of the May weigh-in, I weigh 15 stone and 12 pounds. The first time that I've been under 16 stone in way over a decade. Now I want to talk to you about something that I haven't really focused on too much yet. The financial side of Mounjaro. Because there's no escaping it. It is very expensive. To privately do this can cripple you financially if you're not careful. So my first dose was £140 with discounts, and it was meant to be £199 full price. The price of the 15 milligram pen is £319.99. Now, you can get some discount codes to help you with that, but they have become a lot harder to get your hands on, and even when you do, you might save £20, £25. So I have been averaging paying £290 to £300 a month for Mounjaro 15 milligrams. And this was just not a practical thing to maintain. Now, I am not too proud to say that my mum did financially help me with this Mounjaro. There were months where she would put half the money in and I would top it up. And there were months where she would put more than that. And this is something that I am not going to underplay. I am so incredibly thankful to my mum for helping me the way she did, because it does work for me, and the idea of coming off of it was scary. I didn't want to just put it all back on. I wanted to get down to a certain point so I could then maintain it and maybe look at life without it. In 7 months, I had gone from 19 stone, 13 pounds, to 15 and a bit stone. It was a loss of 3.5 stone, basically. And there was no sign that it was going to slow down unless I stopped taking it. I started my journey at a waistline of 52 inches. As of now, I'm 42 inches and I can fit into some 38s. Something that honestly felt like an unachievable goal way back at the beginning. But I was now faced with the conundrum: carry on paying this financially crippling amount and lose weight, or come off of it and maybe put it all back on. So with this in mind, I decided to revisit getting it prescribed by the NHS, and I went back to my diabetic nurse. After my original meeting with my diabetic nurse, I didn't think that was a route that would come to fruition. So online, I applied to have a one-on-one meeting with my GP, someone who I will call Dr. Jones. At the end of May 2026, I was offered an appointment with Dr. Jones to discuss Mounjaro. Now, Dr. Jones was lovely. He was incredible, really helpful. He explained that in order to be considered for Mounjaro on the NHS, you had to tick a handful of boxes. You had to have 4 pre-existing medical conditions that could be linked to your weight. So, I had a heart condition, check. I had type 2 diabetes, check. I had kidney problems which could be linked to my weight, check. And I suffered from sleep apnea, Check, check, check. Then the other hurdle you needed to jump over was you needed to have a BMI of around 40. The problem being, as of my last weigh-in, I was hitting 39, just under the parameter you needed for the prescription. Now, this is where I really do need to shout out Dr. Jones, because he could see that the only reason I was now slightly underneath that margin was because I was on the very drug that I was now looking to get prescribed. And he didn't want to punish me for that. So he took it upon himself to personally vouch for me because I was the perfect candidate for this treatment on the NHS. So I had the meeting and then I waited. And I waited. And after a couple of weeks of not hearing anything, I was getting close to having to order another pen of Mounjaro. Now, I couldn't really afford this £300. So I rang up the surgery to try and get an update from Dr. Jones. Now, the receptionist I spoke to was very polite, but she informed me that realistically, the wait time for Mounjaro to be prescribed, if at all, was on average 2.5 years. My heart sank. I felt hopeless. This wasn't going to happen. I couldn't maintain this, and my mum couldn't either. So this would be the last pen, and then we would reassess it in a month's time. Now, this coincides with me going to Download Music Festival in June 2026. We ordered the pen. I took the first jab the Tuesday before I went to Download. We decided when I got back from Download we would revisit it and look at the options. Now, that very same day I received a phone call from Dr. Jones, who wanted to book me in with a different diabetic nurse to specifically discuss Mounjaro. Now, he scheduled this in for the Thursday I would return from Download, so basically a week and a half away. So I went to Download. I had a jolly old time. Lots of rock music was heard. Some great people were met. I had a great time. And then I came back and I prepared myself for this meeting with this new diabetic nurse. And I was fully prepared for them to tell me what they told me so many times before. The drug wasn't achievable for me. There was so many other courses of medicine we should take first. But that's not what happened. Okay, so my camera died and I'm actually not 100% sure where I now am. The diabetic nurse that I saw was honestly incredible. She told me that I was the perfect candidate for this medication. She would be more than happy to prescribe me the Mounjaro. The only thing I would need to do would be get a blood test the following day so that they could start a baseline for my new treatment. So the next morning I had a blood test and I was told that I'd be able to pick up my prescription, including Mounjaro, that following Tuesday. Now, when I wrote this script, it was 3 a.m. the morning of that collection, and I was worried that for some reason it would fall through and it wouldn't happen, but I'd collected it. I am now prescribed Mounjaro through the NHS. Something that honestly I am flabbergasted about because I didn't think I would be able to get it. It just didn't feel like it was going to be achievable. So a couple of things to mention. I did ask my diabetic nurse if I would have to go in for a review after like a couple of months of being on the Mounjaro, and I was told no. I was told that because I was going to be taking it for my diabetes as well as weight loss, that generally I would just be able to stay on it. As long as I continued losing in a healthy manner and no unforeseen big health issues arose, I would be able to stay on it for as long as I needed to. And that is basically where I'm at with the Mounjaro. That is where I am currently right now on my weight loss and fitness journey. I've been prescribed Mounjaro 15 milligrams and I've lost 3.5 stone so far, and I don't plan on slowing down. I am, however, at a point where I think I need to add more physical exercise into my regime to continue losing weight in a good way. Now, I am a chef currently. I'm on my feet all day, so I'm quite active as it is, but I need to add some actual exercise beyond what I just do naturally. So I've decided to help keep the weight falling off. I'm going to start running. Now, this isn't going to be anything huge. I'm not going to suddenly start running a 10k marathon or whatever. I've downloaded the Couch to 5k app, which is a NHS run app, which helps you go from no running to running 5k, and it takes you a certain period of time. You can choose your coach who can talk you through it, and it's just meant to be a really good healthy way of getting your running up. Now, I do have a long-term goal. Earlier this year, in one of my earlier vlogs, you will have seen that the mother of my daughters, Amanda, ran a 10k for charity, and I would like to be able to run that next year. That is the Gear 10k charity run, and I think as a long-term goal it would be really nice to be able to run that. So I'm going to use that as my goal of where I'm working towards, with the knowledge that as long as I can get my running up generally, that is enough, and the 10k would be an ultimate goal. But I want to build the running up so that I can strengthen my body, tone myself up, continue to lose weight healthily, and just look good for it. So that's where I am so far. I have lost a good amount of weight. My physical well-being and health is leaps ahead of where it was a year ago. But honestly, the thing that I've noticed the most is my mental health, and my well-being mentally is leaps and bounds beyond where it was. I've spent the last couple of years feeling quite depressed and hating myself. Anyone who has been struggling with weight loss will understand that half of the battle is in your own mind. You look at yourself in the mirror and you just think, I don't like what I see. But I'm starting to actually not hate myself. And that's kind of why I'm starting this series here on YouTube, and I will also pop it over on TikTok. Now, this video, as well as this series, is not meant to act as a this is how you should lose weight. I just want it to be an honest and brutal look at my journey so that you can look at that and see someone who is big work their way through it, because honestly, it's so difficult as a bigger person sorting your health and your weight out. And just getting over that starting point is half the battle. So this series is not a how you should lose weight, because if I'm honest, there is so much more to this than just losing weight. If anything, this series is going to act as documentation of the next longer and harder part, because losing the weight really is the start of this journey, but maintaining it in a healthy way and keeping your weight low and just finding a new lifestyle is going to be the really hard part. So if you've stumbled upon this video because you're thinking about starting a weight loss journey, or you're considering Mounjaro but you don't know what to expect, then this could be the series for you, because I'm going to give you an honest, brutal look at this with the ups and the downs and the highs and the lows. And all you need to know is there's no judgment here. Drop a comment down below. Let me know how you are getting on with your journey. I want to know, because I'm going to share my journey with you. It's not always going to be easy. I expect it's going to be really difficult at some point, because quite frankly, the idea of starting to run is terrifying. But all in all, I'm so glad you found this video. I'm really looking forward to you joining me for the rest of this journey. So if you have any questions about Mounjaro, my weight loss journey so far, or just anything that might seem silly, just don't worry about it. Drop a comment down below. Head over to my Instagram page and drop me a message over there. I'll happily chat to you about it, because the hardest part of this was starting it all. But getting over that hurdle is the difficult bit. My name's Liam, and I'm looking forward to what comes next. Toodle pip.
It's just me and my silly life. I'm Mr. Mandy Pants.